So I just kind of wanted to talk about what I believe will be the end of the world as we know it. And as you can see in the title of this video, I believe that the end of the world as we know it will be the complete extinction of community. Ever since really the beginning of any cultures or tribes or nations was community. And that was what these new countries were basically formed off of. Community could be alliances, it could be the bloodline keeps the throne, that kind of stuff. That can all count as community. And basically towards this new point in time, we are seeing that community, at least the very in-person, regular aspect of it, is really dying, to be honest. I was just reading about how the number of single-person households in the U.S. is some ridiculously high number that is pretty record-breaking. It's like 30%. And then, of course, like broken into there's the older people who may have had a spouse pass away. And so they sway the numbers a little bit. But I really think that community is not so much needed anymore. And now every person needs that kind of like human interaction. Like if people tell me that, oh, you don't need human interaction to live, or you don't need some sort of like connection, I would strongly disagree with them. But I think that social media has basically allowed people to feel like they're connected even when they aren't part of a real community, a real in-person community, one that goes and does things and introduces new people into that group, because social media basically lets you feel connected to people without actually having to go and really do anything. And our birth rates are ridiculously low. They're dipping down even lower. And yes, that does happen when there is pretty much equality across the board amongst basically everyone. That is because people can go and do what they want. And so, 20 years ago, people may have not been as career focused, and they may have been more focused on starting a family, basically building a community around them. And now with social media, even if you haven't seen a friend for like 4 years, it can kind of feel like you have, because you can see like their Instagram posts, or you might Snapchat them every once in a while, and it kind of removes the push to go ahead and connect with them, go and visit them, even if they live somewhere else. And so, especially to a certain point now, because of all the pornography that's online, it's like people don't have to feel like they need to get married. Because if people can just form these basically parasocial bonds with these adult actresses, why would they go out and get a girlfriend and then progress to that person being their fiance, and then progress to being married or having a family? Because novelty is always going to be way more appealing to the majority of people. And social media, alongside that, has made it really tough for people to find others who would maybe want to be in a relationship. Because you watching this, you might be in the minority of people, and you really do want to get married, or you really do want to go find some sort of real relationship. Well, you can't control what other people are doing. And so if all those people are still on social media and they don't feel like they need community, then when you're going out and trying to find and build those connections, you're going to be the outlier in that situation. And it's going to be really tough for you to connect with the people that you're looking for. And back when there was a really big emphasis on going to church and religions, because that is another thing that has been shown by studies, is that this new generation and the generations in the future are predicted to be some of the least religious generations, the least amount of churchgoers, or people who say they believe in something. I'm not saying any specific kind of religion, but what religion normally does is it places a big emphasis on connecting with your neighbor or the people around you. And so a lot of people, 30 years back, they might have met their spouse at church or at a youth group or at a family picnic. And a lot of times those were organized through the churches. And so now for our generation to, not value that as much and just kind of push it away, that's just one more thing related to community that is basically being lost and falling by the wayside. And so I think that is really the big issue here. It's not just one of those that is contributing the most and making all of this happen. It's that they're all happening at the same time. And so the rapid sexualization of media, then there's social media, where people can feel connected to communities of people that they've never met or had an actual conversation with. And then also the pushing away of church and religion, which places a very big emphasis on community. And it's kind of funny because people always used to think that the end of the world was going to be some sort of asteroid or aliens or nukes. And I really do think that it's just going to be ourselves. The birth rates are going to get so low, and it doesn't seem like they can take an upwards turn. And now all of this is probably not going to be in our generation's time. And I still think, even though I said that I don't really see it taking an upward turn, I'm always hopeful. I think that things can change, and I'm not going to be the person who just sits here and says, the future generations, or if you have kids, their children are going to be doomed. I'm not going to say that because I really don't know for sure, but I'm leaning towards the death of community is going to be the end of the world. Now, what should you technically do about this? And what I would do is, even if you aren't necessarily religious or belonging to a certain type of church, I would search for those communities within your city and just pick one that you can say, hey, I'm just going to go to one, be open-minded, and I might meet some people and learn about the way that some people are. And I never know. I could meet a really great friend or maybe even a possible spouse. That's what I would do. And if you're not up for that, then I would search for some sort of hobby that you're interested in and find a group within your city that does possibly regular meetups. So if you're into like photography, search for like photographers of Orlando or photographers of New York and try and find some sort of club that might, meet up for coffee every like once a month, something like that. And that is kind of a way to do your best to shift some of the tide within your local city at the local level. And if there's nothing like that around you, then you should try and be the person who is the coordinator and the difference maker, and reach out to people. If you're into music, then try and reach out to people on Instagram to see if you can create a group. And I'm not saying to go meet up with a bunch of strangers or something for like the first time, but if y'all are talking for a little bit and you kind of feel like you have some grasp on them, then figure out like a public place y'all can meet at, like some sort of park, and just get together with 20 people who share very similar interests to you. And that is kind of a way to shift the tides in this next wave of battles that we are facing from the decline of friend groups and community.